So we're group 3, and we're going to answer the questions for the case study. So the first question is, what do teachers do to encourage or block the formation of new professional curriculum leadership identity?
Well, for me, I had to first fully understand what's the new professional curriculum leadership identity and versus the conservative approach curriculum development that was taken by the principal in this building. And I actually had to go back to the chapter 3. I think it was mentioned in this book that there was a link there. So I clicked and went back to that chapter just to fully understand or learn this new approach. And it looks like the curriculum leadership identity is an approach that really promotes or believes in democratic, imperative curriculum leadership, a holistic approach towards, personal growth and empowerment of children and adults in a community. Looking at the application of knowledge and education to different aspects like the cultural politics and social inequities, while the other approach, which is towards the conservative approach, teaching based on standards and skills, pretty much what we call um, testing to pass the test. So I guess to encourage that progressive or new professional curriculum leadership identity is to promote the democratic approach in education, like helping and promoting or helping the staff that embraces this philosophy, and to black those curriculum is to support the conservative philosophy of teaching a standardized based curriculum, teaching skills to perform better on the test, which I think was the approach that the principal wants to take in this case.
And so in the case study, the teacher asks the kids, what motivates you to learn? And their question or their answers were all very, so I can get a good job. And so that intrinsic piece is really important to this teacher, right? But the principal, it seems, isn't really supportive of that kind of teaching. So the question kind of talks about, what do teachers do? And it seems like the teachers don't have a lot of autonomy or support to explore their own pedagogy and do things the way that they want to do them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I noted was, I think there's that small conglomerate of teachers that want to try to block this principal's ideals, but because there's safety in numbers, typically there's not very many. It says in the case study, they express their allegiance to whole language literacy philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
But they, I think, are having a hard time pressing that to other staff members that are very much test driven.
There you go.
However, I do think that their allegiance to that style was noticed by the principal, because then he moves into, I guess, question 2, if we're ready to jump into that.
Yeah, go ahead. I was getting ready to say, that's a good segue.
To what extent does the school contribute to or inhibit this identity formation? And I think, what Dr. Draper does is then launches this curriculum alignment project where teachers have to turn in lesson plan books. Teachers are sent off to professional development for understanding by design and then success for all. They listened to some CEO, talked about education trust, and basically spearheaded this mission of, no, we're going to do this way. And I'm sure that really then kind of oppressed those teachers that were trying to maybe move this whole literacy or whole language philosophy approach through the building. But it created definitely some discourse, it sounds like, among staff.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, that's some of the things that I was going to talk about in my question. So I know all three of these are kind of related, but the aspects which promote or inhibit the growth, kind of the same thing. In the chapter where they were talking about the case study with Dr. Draper in the teachers'
Mhm.
lounge in this middle school or this elementary school, there's two tables, one table where the progressive teachers sit and one where the more conservative teachers sit. And I thought that is so bizarre that these teachers, and they're not even talking about school in the teachers lounge, it sounds like they're just so grouped up in these philosophies that they can't get out of their own way. And I was thinking in my head, if I'm a principal and I walk into a building like that, how do you even begin to move people together? That would be a really big challenge.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he clearly is promoting one, one philosophy over another, which I think as a leader is kind of hard to do. You sort of have to, marry all of the approaches together as long as the outcomes are there. Keith and I were talking a little bit about outcomes just because we're talking about summer school. And so what do you get out of it and how do you get there? Do we really care how you get there? Maybe
That
some
was
people
I
do.
remember the second case that we did, right? The second case, the writing
Yeah, the writing challenge.
contest.
Yep, yep.
Mhm.
Different teachers use different approaches, and yet they develop the same skills, and kids learn how to write and attain those same academic goals. There's so many ways to get to the same destination, different approaches, and yet you arrive in the same spot.
Yeah. I
So
think for me, kind of what jumps out in this case study, it goes to the Seashore Lewis Wallstrom article about principals as cultural leaders.
mm,
Um, and needing to understand how, even if you promote a certain philosophy or style, that's going to have an effect on every staff member because there's going to
mm,
be people in your building that aren't going to buy into that.
yeah,
And so trying to figure out if I really want to move people to do this thing a certain way, I've got to figure out how I can get them on board with me, and how do we flip the culture so that people understand where we're coming from. And that's, I think, it kind of alludes to in this chapter 4, I think, in talking about the new professional leadership style. um, there's almost like a dichotomy where these
yeah,
leaders know and understand that the test is important, but they also know and understand that they need to meet kids where they're at and do these things,
Mhm.
but don't know how to mesh the two necessarily. And
Yeah.
I think because there's so much pressure put on schools and states to perform well on state standardized assessments, that's the direction they lean.
yeah,
So some of that
And
cultural, some of that cultural philosophy is almost mandated by state assessment tests for some of these building principals who, in some cases, their jobs may depend on the school performing. So I can see that being a really difficult thing, um, for a building leader,
yeah,
depending on where you're at.
yep,
when getting hung up on the turn in your lesson plans and have
yeah,
your lesson book on your desk so I know exactly where you're at and what you're teaching,
yeah,
that's somebody who doesn't know what to do. I think you're trying to control every little thing because you're not really sure how to handle the bigger picture and how to
Mhm.
promote, people doing what's natural for them. I don't know. We tried to have teachers turn in lesson plans at my school this year for the first time ever. And it was horrible. Like our veteran teachers, they were just so frustrated because I know what I'm doing. Why do I have to tell you? You're supposed to trust me with this process. And it was
yeah,
hard because I do trust them, right? It was a district mandate. And I wasn't looking at their lesson plans. I wasn't making sure they were teaching standard 7.3.2. I
Yeah.
believe that my people are doing what they're supposed to do. So I think
yeah,
that gets really frustrating for the culture of a building when teachers feel micromanaged. Then they micromanage their kids, and then it's just, yeah, you lose a lot of big things.
Yeah. Well, and Laura, you said the right word there too, is trust. As I was reading through that article on culture, I wrote it off in big bold words, trust, because that's such a critical element with
Mhm.
any initiative that you're trying to push, is that people don't have to agree on the philosophy. Whether you're very structured literacy based or whatever, and I am, I just want to teach out of my textbook. We don't have to have the same philosophy or style, but if we don't trust one another, that we're trying to find the same outcomes, or if teachers don't
Yeah.
trust their building leader, then it's not going to matter what initiative you're trying to.
what, yeah, mhm,
There's no trust there. I'm not going to do that. And so I think,
Right.
like you said, as soon as you started asking your veteran teachers for their lesson plans, that broke the trust that may have been there for years, because
Yeah.
now implied that you don't trust that they're teaching what they're supposed to be doing.
Hey guys, I'm just wondering, do you have that in the negotiation contract,
Nope.
the agreement, what type of lesson plan or how detailed?
We have nothing in our agreement.
No, I don't believe we
Don't
do
have
either.
it. Wow. In USC 259, there is a line about that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
it's-
micromanaging. I think,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, I save those really big asks of teachers for like really big things. You know, I need your help with this because you're an expert, and I'm not going to go ask them to turn their lesson plans. I think that's crazy, and maybe I'm in trouble for saying that. But anyway, I think we covered all the questions. Hopefully, is there anything else you guys want to add?
I'm good.
I think we got
Okay.
it.